Hello, friends, and welcome to Thursday's Kings of Anglia podcast. Today is going to be a good day, friends, because Ipswich Town produced a statement win, the biggest win of the season, not in terms of goals scored, but certainly in terms of impact. And as I say, statement, winning 4-0 at Pompey. Checkbook FC, get that in your pipe and smoke it, boys. They won 4-0 at Pompey. I am Mark Heath. I'm your host as ever. It's a cut down, slimmed down version of the pod today. There's just three of us. Mr. Bacon, as predicted, has been poached and will be appearing on BBC Radio Suffolk later on today to talk about his new book. Fame has totally gone to his head. And Roscoe, as we've just been discussing, I'm not sure where he is. Tried to get hold of him this morning. Can't get hold of him. I know he's out last night. So the boy Rossi has let himself down badly, and I will be having words with him in due course. Angry words, I'd imagine. But boys, I never have angry words with you because you are the boys who were in Pompey on Tuesday night, and what a night it was. I'm going to start with you, Andy Hutchwarren. How are you? How was Pompey? How's things?
What transfer fee did we get for Bacon?
Well, I kind of inherited him in the squad, didn't I? He's very much been part of the furniture for some time. And the Radio Suffolk thing is kind of a what's the word? It's a one-game trial, I guess.
Right. Okay.
So if he performs well, then we can talk potatoes.
Big money though, yeah. We're not.
Well, it
his
depends.
value's gone up recently.
It depends what they want to do with him, I guess. But yeah, so he's on Radio Suffolk. He's on the Leslie Dolphin sofa today, I think, virtually, discussing his new novel.
Yeah.
Which is words I never ever thought would come out of my mouth. But there you go. That's what it is. The Porker is, as I say, headed to the stratosphere. He's spent a few moments with us, come to an award ceremony, and now he's off to Radio Suffolk on the next stage of his journey. So yeah. But how are you, Hutchie? Enough about the Porker. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. I will be. It'll be a sad day if Mike does eventually move on, but you can't deny your players the chance to move if their head's turned. You don't want. They're just going to come back and cause trouble, aren't they? And I imagine that he will. That
100%.
We're not far from the transfer request being slapped in.
It's the old Flynn Downs Crystal Palace thing all over again, isn't it? So we'll see what happens with the Porker. But if you're listening to this on Thursday and it's up in time, I think he's on at 3:30 p.m. this afternoon, Leslie Dolphin's show. So get on that because I'm sure he'll be very entertaining. Someone who's also very entertaining, of course, is the Doctor, Stuart of House Watson. How are you, my friend?
Good, thank you.
How was Pompey? And most importantly, how was the trip back? Because you boys travelled separately on the way back. Hutch, you had to come back on the night for childcare reasons. You took the option, as I'm a big fan of you doing, to stay over in a palatial 5-star hotel. You had the boy Ross...
3-star hotel.
3-star. You had the boy Rossi with you though, and came back with him on the train yesterday. So was it like a little a flashback to our night out in London? Was it like being a dad again yesterday to a slightly immature teenage child?
I did just say to Andy, had I not been there, I fear that Ross might still be on the London Tube doing circuits of that now. Yeah, we obviously you have to get yourself across from Waterloo to Liverpool Street to meet the connecting train. And Ross just decided that he thought the Jubilee line was the one to take because he had a vague recollection of being on it once.
Nice.
So, yeah, Dad had to take over and make sure we got ourselves across the city.
You were working as well, weren't you, on the train? Proper, like, multitasking. I assume Ross was just kind of staring out the window and saying squirrel every now and then, that kind of stuff.
He's all right. He had his AirPods in. He knew not to
disrupt the flow.
Exactly.
You do not disrupt Stuart Watson's flow.
Exactly.
If you do, there would have been serious trouble on that train, and probably in the quiet carriage as well. And he would have felt the wrath of Stuart Watson.
You'd have liked it, Mark. We were quite near a table of very loud young men that were proclaiming themselves to be cage fighters, were involved in cage warriors, and were talking very loudly about leg kicking people and gassing at the end of fights.
You don't know who they were, do you?
Of course he doesn't know who they were.
I have a friend, Tariq Pell, who was out sparring in London yesterday. It could well have been him. Travelling back to Norwich, they would have been. Anyway, I digress, boys. I digress. Let's talk about Ipswich Town thrashing, tonking, thumping, humiliating Portsmouth at their own gaff, 4-0. What a wonderful day, what a wonderful night, and what a wonderful time to be alive it is. Stewie, give us your opening thoughts on this magnificent victory.
Statement win, no doubt about it. Even with Portsmouth's worries at the moment, to go to Fratton Park and win 4-0 is quite the result, isn't it? And one that I'm sure has made others across the league sit up and take notice. This is a Portsmouth side, lest we forget, that beat Sunderland 4-0 at Fratton Park not that long ago. So not to be sniffed at and take absolutely nothing away from Ipswich Town. That was, as Paul Cook said, their most complete performance of the season. We know that they've got goals in them, but the few question marks that have been over their head is, can they be clinical when on top and ruthlessly finish off and shut down games when on top? They did that. Can they manage the game after going in front? They did that. They got to half time and they started on the front foot and set the tone in the second half. Can they be physical and aggressive and deal with that side of the game in tough, windy conditions? They did that in the first half as well. They won the fight before they won the football match. So pulled everything together really nicely to a man. Were excellent, I thought.
Hutchie, your opening thoughts. What did you make of the team, first of all? We discussed on Monday areas that they could change, and Toto and Ciala duly came in as discussed. Connor Chaplin stayed in that 10 role. What did you make of the team and the performance?
It was with Walton coming in goal as well. It's similar to what we discussed, wasn't it? I think they were changes that maybe would come at some point. I didn't expect Toto to come in for this one, but he did, and he performed well, just like they all did. But as Stu just said, that the most pleasing thing about it was the game management. In all the different phases, they did things that they haven't done consistently, and they certainly haven't done them all at the same time in a game. They came out strong, they putting themselves about early. I think that they were up for this one, coming out onto the pitch, and they saw it through for 90 minutes and got their rewards. I'm not bothered that Portsmouth are in a tough run, a very tough run. Doesn't bother me in the slightest that's the team that they've beaten to do this. They're a good side, good players, a manager that will always put a competitive team on the field, even if they're not producing the quality. And it is a win that not just sends a statement out to the rest of the league. I think more importantly, kind of sends a statement out to Ipswich, to the club's own fans, to the players themselves, that they've got this kind of level of complete performance in them, because we knew they had because we've seen all the pieces, but to see them put it all together is what we've been waiting for.
There's one other element that I don't want to dwell on too much, but to get that sort of result, you do also need a little slice of luck or two along the way, dare I say it. And Portsmouth had the best chance of the first half, which Harness put wide, and obviously the goalkeepers had a night to forget as well. But so luck at key moments can play a part, or a good little bit of fortune plays a part. But as I kept saying at the very start, take nothing away from Ipswich, because you have to capitalise on that. Boy, did they capitalise.
They used a term that I loved from earlier in the season that Hutchie said they stamped on their throat. And that's exactly what they did again, didn't they, Hutchie? It's always good when you've got the ability to stamp on someone's throat. Stewie, touching on what Hutchie just mentioned there then, how good was this win? We've already referred to it as a statement win, a very impressive win on paper against one of the fellow League One big boys, no doubt about it. Pompey and Town are right up there in terms of size of clubs in League One. But Hutchie also said they're not doing very well at the moment. So how good was this? Because you look at it, obviously Town's wins so far this season have come against sides largely that are struggling. The 6-0 win was against Doncaster, who are awful. This 4-0 win was against a Pompey side who are also struggling. So in the grand scheme of things, how good was this victory, do you think?
Yeah, it's provided a very nice platform now going into these games. Obviously, Fleetwood at home now on Saturday. Chance to go and make it back-to-back league wins. Ipswich haven't done that since Paul Cook's been appointed manager back in March. They've not won back-to-back league games. So they've got to now, as I said earlier, they've kind of answered a few of these little mini questions about, have they got, after the Accrington game, have they got the fight And is there too much complacency in this squad? I think they've answered that quite well in the subsequent games. Can they finish teams off when on top? So they've started answering some of these. The next question now is can they back it up? Which we've been stuck in this cycle of 1 step forward, 2 steps back. So Saturday's a big one in that respect. And if they can answer that question, that sets up a very nice platform going into games against the likes of Plymouth, Wickham, Sunderland on the not too distant future. So slowly but surely, it just feels like we talked about cautious optimism a few weeks ago, just that things are just starting to drop into place, and it's this slow burner of a season could start to heat up, hopefully.
Yeah, certainly that is the next big thing, isn't it? Is now they've got this statement win. They need to build on it. That means nothing if they don't win really at home against a struggling Fleetwood Town side on Saturday, and we'll come on to that in due course. But let's continue to bathe for a little while longer, boys, in the positivity of this result. Excuse me. That's got it. Hutchie, what stood out for you about the performance? What did you like?
I liked that we came away from it not talking about a consensus absolute standout star man, that we were debating who that might be, because there were probably 4 or 5 that you could talk about as having really good games, and that's what you need. You need a team that are delivering good performances in all areas of the pitch. Janoy Danassian played really well. George Edmondson played really well. I thought Lee Evans played really well. Clearly, Macaulay Bond scored another really nice Macaulay Bond style goal. Like Wes Burns made an impact off the bench. Sonny Aluko did it again. Connor Chaplin had a really good game at his old club, and they all happened. And the ones I've not mentioned there were all solid as well. It isn't that I'm not mentioning them because they were poor. They weren't. They were really good, and is a proper full-on team performance, and that's what pleased me the most, rather than sort of winning a game because Macaulay Bonne came up with another kind of nuisance goal. That was just the start of it.
I think 4 different goal scorers pleases me. The fact that we talked about, we hope that Macaulay Bonne is going to carry on like this forever, but chances are it's not going to be like this the whole time. But Ipswich have got goals throughout this team now. For years, we've been talking about the lack of assists and goals from other areas of the team, from midfield. I think I saw a stat on Twitter the other day saying that there's been more assists from midfield players already this season than there was for the entirety of last. So that speaks volumes. But also, let's not overlook the value of the clean sheet as well. That is every bit as big to me as the 4 goals. At 4-0, even at 3 and 4-0, Ipswich played with a real intensity and desire to see out that clean sheet, because how often do you see a team have won the game, got it done, and then you concede a silly consolation goal towards the end? But Christian Walton, back in the team, had a little bit of a shaky start where he had a couple of clearances charged down, but he made a couple of really solid saves towards the end to see out that clean sheet. You saw what it meant to Toto Enciala back in the side, with footage of him really letting out a roar at the final whistle. And Andy mentioned Edmondson and Janoy Danassian, who again were really good. And that first half for me, I know people talked about that being a scrappy, rubbish first half to watch, but that was every bit as important. That they got just stuck in. There was a tackle in the first minute, I think, where Carl Edwards got absolutely wiped out by Ryan Tunnicliffe over by the corner flag. And they're sort of tone-setting tackles, and Ipswich responded with fire for fire, and Sam Morsey was ratting about in midfield and leaving little bits on people. And that spread throughout the team. And that's the bit that pleased me the most.
Macaulay Bonne, Hutchie. Has no one at Pompey been scouting him? Surely someone would have said, "Do not try anything, goalkeeper." When Macaulay Bonne is hunting around, you boys called him a pest, which I think makes him sound a bit like an insect. I'm going to christen him the Menace, because that's what he is. And if I was a boxing promoter, I'd be promoting him like that, Macaulay the Menace Bonne, because you have to be on your P's and Q's whenever he's on the pitch and whenever he's around. It's staggering that a keeper would try and do something like that with someone like Macaulay Bonne.
Yeah, we said this the other day, didn't we? There's no excuse if it happens again. After everybody will have seen, and in the build up to these games, they will have discussed it. They 100% will have discussed that a little over a month ago or whatever it was, Macaulay Bonne did that to Bailey Peacock Farrell. So he had so much time, Bazunu, just to play a simple pass out to his left back. He's a bit of a front foot goalkeeper, Bazunu. We've seen him have some really good games. Again, a really good game against Ipswich. He's a front foot goalkeeper that likes to play. He's always kind of trying to when he picks the ball up, he charges out to the edge of his box, and he likes to kind of be the start of an attack for his team. And
touch of the Man City's about him there. So, young goalkeeper who's coming up through Man City is trying to be the sort of the next mini Edison and what everyone wants in a modern day goalkeeper. But just put your foot through it, son, especially when Macaulay Bonne's on the scene. And I tell you what, he still had a lot to do, didn't he? Just like the Sheffield Wednesday. We keep referring to it as his goal against Sheffield Wednesday. It wasn't even an assist in the end, was it? It was a pre-assist, but it felt like a Macaulay Bonne goal. But this time he did actually get the goal. And it looked like the ball had sort of run away from him. And then it just held up right at the last minute. You see the ball slow up and then he has that. I just imagine when the adrenaline spikes like that and the goalkeeper's flailing at your feet and he manages to kind of just ice in the veins, slow things down. And I think Andy said during the game, it was a bit like Marcus Stuart against at Anfield in that memorable Premier League season. I think he had a couple of goals like that, didn't he? Where he just sort of kept his nerve and danced back inside. And
Bolton in the playoffs as well, the playoff semi-final, second leg, to dance around goalkeepers, make space, and then good. It was a decent finish as well from a fairly tight angle. So good for him.
Superb. I was taken with two things as well that you mentioned on the night, Stewie. One, but I mean both involving the Pompey crowd. One was the standing ovation for Connor Chaplin when he came off. How rarely do you see that for a player who's, yes, he's one of their own, but he's come back and absolutely thumped them at their own gaff and then gets applauded off by the home fans. Mm-hmm. And the other one was the mention of the kind of making you a little bit remember the situation at Town not too long ago with ironic cheers for shots on target and kind of a toxic atmosphere. Do you want to talk a little bit about those two?
Yeah, Chaplin moment was a real hairs on the back of the neck moment, really, that they were 4-0 down. Connor Chaplin comes off and all four sides of the ground sort of rose as one, and he's one of our own. That was quite the rousing reception, really. I think it even took Connor by surprise, really. It was a respectful, sort of muted celebration, of a point in the direction of Janoy Danassian for the assist, but didn't go overboard. Obviously came through the ranks, had been there at quite a young age, helped them get promoted under Paul Cook from League Two. And he's made that number 10 spot his own now, no doubt about it. I think we were mindful of that going into this game, but I think that seals it. He's played that role the best of any of them. As I said, he's almost like a second striker rather than an extra midfielder. His first thought is to drive forward into space. We talked a lot about Selina's natural movement was always to the left. I think Chaplin's got a wider range of movement. He sort of goes into different areas of the pitch. Took his goal really well. So he was another big bright spot. And then, would I call it toxic? It was very much like if you go back to just before the lockdown happened and the season finished. And I remember that Fleetwood game when Ipswich lost. And there was those sarcastic cheers every time Harry Souttar headed the ball away, the big centre half, because Ipswich just kept pumping it on top of him. And it gets to the stage where it's so bad that it's like gallows humour. And that's kind of where it was. I don't know if you've seen the video of the last 10 to 15 minutes, the Portsmouth fans kept singing, "We've got the ball, we've got the ball, we've lost the ball." And it was perfectly timed every time the possession got sort of turned over. And they just did that the whole way through to the end, just pure gallows humour. And, we had that as well during the end of the Mick McCarthy era as well, didn't we? Where it just felt like sarcastic cheers when you had a shot in the 81st minute, that sort of thing. And it was a reminder to me that even when those bad, those disappointing moments happen, like Cambridge, I enjoy going to watch Ipswich again. And that ultimately is what we're all in football for, isn't it?
What must that feel like for a manager standing on the touchline? Your team's 4-0 down and you've got a fairly sizable crowd just mocking your mocking themselves, mocking the team just from the top. It must feel. What do you do in that? It's just you must be at a loss.
Yeah. Well, I know what I'd do. I'd get very angry, but that's just me.
It's red card.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other notes from the game, boys? Because I want to talk about Paul Cook as well. But is there anything else you want to highlight from the game, either players, goals, anything like that, Hutchie?
No, I think we're all good. Let's talk about Mr. Cook.
Well, I've got a question for you, first of all, boys. Well, it's a twofold question. A, who takes cheese with them to a football ground? And B, who then decides, I don't want this cheese anymore. I'm going to lob it at Paul Cook as a show of my contempt for him. Baffling. If that's indeed what it was, I've got one of my general rules in life is don't trust anyone who doesn't like cheese. And I think that's a rule you can generally pretty much live by. And I'd also add to that, don't trust anyone who lobs cheese at an individual, particularly at a football ground. So Stewie, because obviously I'm following the game on your tweets as I'm doing all the stuff at home for print. There was a suggestion at first that it was an apple, and then post game it emerged that it may have been a bit of cheese.
Yeah, we're up quite high in that stand behind the dugouts, and at the sort of the very front of that top tier, there was a few angry individuals shouting at Mr. Cook. We said that Connor Chaplin got a great reception. I think Paul Cook, as much as he delivered that promotion as manager, and I think they remember the style of football and his sort of heart on the sleeve passion quite fondly. The way he left for Wigan, I think he'd said, I'd only leave for one club, and that would be Liverpool. And then weeks later, he'd gone to Wigan, and that was obviously well remembered. And yeah, frustrations boiled over, and I think Andy and I saw something in the corner of our eye fly onto the pitch at one stage, and it kind of maybe about a foot or two away from Paul Cook's head, and sort of shattered onto the playing surface. We thought, is that an apple? If you can imagine the way an apple would explode upon impact, it kind of looked like that. And no one seemed to react, Cook or anyone. And then it happened again sort of later in the game, didn't it, Andy? We were convinced it was an apple. Then the stewards kind of mobilised. There was a little guard around sort of Paul Cook towards the end of the game, and some stewards kind of mobilised around the scene where it had come from. And then the plot thickened, didn't it, after the match, Andy?
Yeah, we were having a little wander around the stadium to record our little video. And first of all, we were moved on from our original recording spot for that video by a job. Let's call him a Jobsworth steward in a bike helmet, who tried to tell us that we couldn't stand in the stand in case we fell over due to health and safety reasons. So thank you for that.
Do you know who he reminded me of? He reminded me of Neil's dad from The In-Betweeners, if that gives you a visual image. A gentleman like that had a bike helmet on. And
why was he wearing a bike helmet? Is that in case he fell over?
Well, I think that has to be the reason why, just
Safety
in case.
first.
Yeah, just we didn't fall over. But that led us to then walk down some stairs, at which point we overheard Gary Roberts having a debrief with a former Portsmouth colleague of his, where he suggested that it was actually some cheese. So, and he should know because he was there.
Who does that, boys? Have you ever taken? You think, right? I'm going to the game. I might take a chocolate bar. I might take a little pack of peanuts or something. Whack them in my pocket. No one goes. Tell you what I'll do. I'll take a cheese truckle to the game, and then
what is a truckle?
It's a little round thing of cheese, isn't it? A little cheese truckle. And then to show my anger, I'm going to lob said cheese truckle at the manager. Have you ever taken cheese to a football game?
Not cheese. A friend of mine has become a bit of a meme in the Arsenal community because he was caught on TV eating a bag of carrot sticks in the front row at the Emirates. But there's some unusual food being consumed on a Tuesday night. I don't know if you're dashing to get to the game after work. I need some dinner. Cheese.
I'll just take that ball of cheese.
I'll just take the cheese. Maybe that's what happened. He wouldn't have got a knife through. He shouldn't have got a knife into the ground to cut it with either. So if it was, or maybe he'd gone shopping at the big Tesco's before the game. And had the cheese, but it didn't make it home.
So many questions. Where was he keeping his pickles and chutneys if he's got cheese with him? Because obviously you need those. Did he have crackers?
If they'd scored a fifth.
The way it disintegrated on impact suggests it was a soft cheese as well, like a crumbly cheese. So again, it's not like he just got a block of cheddar there.
Yeah. You could do some damage with a block of cheddar.
Mm.
Thank God it was a soft cheese, boys. Anyway, we are transgressing and digressing a bit.
No, it's an important topic.
Absolutely. Lactose-based implements being lobbed at Cook. Before the game, boys, Mr. Cook was clearly up for it. There was a video doing the rounds on Twitter of him interacting, shall we say, with Pompey, well-known Pompey journalist Neil Allen before the game. What did you make of that? If you haven't seen the video, basically he's walking into the ground. He sees Neil, who's covered Pompey for God knows how long. Goes to shake his hand and then has a bit of a pop at him about stories he's been writing, saying essentially, let it go. I've left. Stop writing the same old stories, sort of things. He was clearly fired up, boys. You said in one of your tweets, actually, he was barking and screaming on the sidelines, Stewie. What did you make of Cook, that video and kind of what it meant to him?
I know Paul tried to sort of downplay his return to Portsmouth being just another game, but I think there was a bit of an extra edge for this game for him. I think he was probably uncertain what sort of reception he was going to get going back to Fratton Park with fans for the first time. He's always quite lively on the touchline, but I thought he was extra lively, probably exacerbated by the fact that the Cowley brothers are normally sort of adding to that. They're sort of known for sort of getting at the fourth official and baiting the opposition dugout. I think Danny Cowley kept telling the fourth official every time Paul Cook stepped a yard or two outside of his technical area.
That's the school teacher in him, I think.
which probably wound up Paul a little bit more. But I think Neil Allen and Paul ended up having a good laugh and a handshake after the game, which I suppose you can do when you've won 4-0. But it's an emotional game, isn't it, football? And people read far too much into these sort of exchanges. Paul had a good laugh with us as he walked past on the video. Does that mean we're best friends in the world? Next week, he'll probably be telling me to stop writing rubbish at some point. That's just the nature of the game. And I don't know. We talked about Paul being a little bit spiky on Monday coming into this on a completely human level. Let's not forget, the guy lost his dad less than 2 weeks ago and worked through that period and is probably still going through the grieving process, and things come out in different ways. And as I said before, he's a guy who just wears his heart on his sleeve. I think what you see is what you get with Paul Cook. He's an emotional man. And I like that. And I think fans like that as well. He lives it and kicks it and breathes it the same as the rest of us as well. So as much as he now talks about staying level-headed and you don't win anything and trying to do all the manager speak, he's as up and down as the rest of us. I'm sure of it.
Can I just say as well, boys, if you carry on, if you've not watched the video post-game, do go and watch it. Bravo to you, boys, because like the professionals you are, Paul Cook walks by, you beckon him back and say, come on, say hello. And he duly does. And you break, obviously, while he says something to the camera about, I hope they're saying nice things about us tonight. And then he disappears and you immediately just resume where you were. Incredibly professional performance, boys. Fantastic. But Hutchie, obviously this game meant a lot to Paul Cook, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And I'm really pleased for him that he got the result that he would have wanted for it. They've been back to Portsmouth already under him, of course, back in, I think it was March, April time, lost 2-1, let a lead slip, same old stories. I think that might have been a day where certain players maybe came to the end of the line with Paul Cook at that game at Fratton Park. But to do it with fans, clearly, big night for him. He's got a lot of friends down there. I think we're told maybe there was some people that he knew that came to the hotel the night before the game, like old friends from Portsmouth. It's big for managers. I think Paul is the kind of man that whichever club he's at, he's kind of all in on that club. He in the grand scheme of things, actually, his time at clubs is quite brief in terms of the amount of seasons he has at certain clubs. But he's the kind of bloke that while he is at a club, it's all in. Give everything. And so to go back to a club like Portsmouth, big crowd, good crowd, and to do that would have been massive for him. There's another one to come, of course, with Wigan in December as well. So we've got to strap ourselves in to do this all again. I'm sure he'll get possibly a slightly better reception at Wigan than he did at Portsmouth, given the nature of his departure and how tough that was for his team to be broken up.
That's going to be great. The Liam Richardson faced-off, master versus apprentice, the man that he tried to lure back to Portman Road, that decided that's going to be great.
So much hashtag narrative there, boys. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. This, as we talked about, obviously meant a lot to Cook. It meant a lot to the players as well to do it for him, didn't it, Hutchie? Because you spoke to Christian Walton after the game and he mentioned that.
Yeah.
In terms of what we spoke about on Monday, obviously we spent time talking about the substitutions at Cambridge and Cook saying that was been all over analysed and he hated all that sort of side of things. So being as we spent time talking about that and maybe being critical of that, what is there stuff we should praise him about, particularly for this game? And can you talk a little bit about what Walton said to you after the game?
Christian Walton is a man that clearly. Stuart, are you looking up what substitutions got made on there?
Yeah.
I'm going to need to do that in a minute as well.
Do you want them?
Yeah. Quickly, let's have them because I'm going to.
You talk about Walton and then I'll give them to you.
Yeah. He's played for Cook before, for 2 seasons on loan at Wigan, and he was just saying. I asked him what that meant to the players to be able to deliver that for Paul Cook, and he was pretty clear they were really happy to do that for him because he's a manager that is so passionate and puts so much into his teams. So to be able to get kind of the joy out of it, that the joy that he puts in to come out, they were really, really pleased for him. He was saying that maybe a managers don't get enough credit for when these big wins come, and he's probably, we talked about the manager getting too much criticism in the wake of poor results, didn't we? And it's probably right. The players probably get a bigger bulk of the praise for the big wins, and the managers take the heat for the losses. So Christian thought it was right that that the manager maybe got a little bit of praise for what his players did for him on the pitch.
Go on then, Stu. I mean, clearly he changed the team anyway, didn't he? He brought Toto in.
He did, yeah. That's where the praise comes, I think, for this, is the changes that he made to the starting 11. The subs thing is a bit of an irrelevance for me. Paul sort of said, on Saturday, I made this. He said, basically made a little bit of a comment about, I made the same attacking substitutions at Cambridge and I've done it today and I look like a genius. Ipswich were 3-0 up when they made their first sub. Burns for Edwards, they were 4-0 up when they made their last 2 subs. Harper for Chaplin and Selina for Aluko. So yes, he did make the same sort of 3 changes in the area of the pitch, but the difference was you're 3-0 up, the game's won. So I don't think that really changes can Paul Cook make the right substitutions to change the way a game is going type thing. The praise comes from this game is that he was bold enough to make the 4 changes to the starting 11. We talked about Burgess being probably in that sort of amber to red zone, and I think Andy and I were both of the feeling that he might get one more game, but he decided to make that change and go with Toto. We knew that Walton would probably, as soon as he was fit, would come in, so that wasn't a great surprise. Evans, we knew, would come straight back in after his partner had given birth. I thought he actually I thought he was the biggest part of that second half performance with the way he sort of intercepted, controlled possession. But those 2 defensive changes were quite big. And Kyle Edwards came in as well for Fraser, who wasn't in the 18. We're not actually in amongst the joy of the 4-0 win. Didn't get an update on that. I assume that's an injury. But the Toto change at centre half was quite a bold one. That's where I think the praise comes from.
Okay, just a couple more things to mention before we move on to this weekend, which is clearly another big game. Peter Reid was there wearing a very natty jacket. Where was Mark Ashton though, boys?
Not dissimilar to yours. Can I just point out?
I know, I thought it was very fashionable indeed. Probably would have looked better on me, but that's neither here nor there. Mark Ashton, I know he was there, so why didn't we see him shirtless at the halfway line waving an Ipswich Town flag after the 4-0 win?
Cold, isn't it? Very cold. Windy. Lincoln was nice and sunny.
Yeah. Okay, so he's a fair weather high fiver, fan celebrator, shall we say? Because that would have just topped the evening for me if we'd just seen Ashton doing the same kind of
like Souness at Galatasaray, where he goes and plants the flag in the centre circle. I want that, but a big flag that just said Checkbook FC, and Ashton just goes and sticks it in the centre circle, maybe flicking some V's as he walks back down the tunnel.
Just burning 50 quid notes as he walks down the sideline. Yeah, superb. Right then, boys. A small break just to remind you to please support our sponsors, manscaped.com. Use code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery. Been using the Weed Whacker this morning, boys. Noticed the old proboscis needed a trim up, the old ears as well. Old being the key term, as I approach my dotage. I've got some big decisions to make. One day we'll talk about those. But yeah, code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery. This weekend, boys, Fleetwood Town at home. Stewie, you are off as of tomorrow. You're off up to Scotland, so you're going to miss the next couple of games. A well-earned break, and I'm sure that's going to be lovely. Scotland, fantastic. We've talked about it before, Hutchie, how much we both love Scotland. Whereabouts are you going, Stewie? Just before we dive into Fleetwood, where are you going?
A couple of nights in Edinburgh, and then we've got a little base in Perth, sort of near the Perthshire Fife border. There's a base to go and explore, so it'd be nice.
Lovely. Scotland's amazing. Anyway, you won't be at Portman Road this weekend. Mr. Hutchie will, along with the big porker and Roscoe, who's just texted me and said, sorry, I had a dentist appointment. I'm going to put that in inverted commas, I think, a dentist appointment. Anyway, I'll speak to him in due course. But Fleetwood Town this weekend, boys, we said before, this is a game after they've got a statement win. Just like Doncaster, they won 6-0 and we were like, yeah, everything's great and it's liftoff. And then they went and lost at Accrington Stanley. Much like this situation, they've won 4-0 at Pompey, which, you know, arguably is a much better win than the win over Doncaster, given the relative backgrounds of the sides, etc. And the fact it was away. They've got Fleetwood at home this weekend. This is a game, really, they have to win, isn't it, Hutchie? I'm not saying it's a must-win game, but we need to start seeing chaining results together, don't we?
Yeah, Stu talked earlier about the little tests that are being passed, and as we said earlier in this is the next one, the back-to-back wins. You've got your win, same as the Doncaster game. I don't think they'll make the same mistakes as they did at at Accrington. It's a different game, but yeah, it is one they need. I think every home game now you're going to look at it because of the ground they've got to make up. Portman Road is a ground where they've got Paul Cook's actually got a pretty good record at Portman Road. That Bolton game aside, and some dropped points aside, but you'll look at every home game now, and they have to win them really, because if they don't, that's another away win they need to go and get to slowly grind their way back into this. Fleetwood, interesting side. They lost on Tuesday. I think it was Burton they lost to at home, but prior to that they had I think it was a run of 1 loss in 10 in that run. So
I'm just looking at their results now. It's not going to be easy, you know. I know people look at their position in the table, but they put 3 goals past Cheltenham. They scored 4 at Rotherham, 2-2 against Sunderland, 2-2 against Cambridge, 3-3 against MK Dons, 3-0 against Crewe. So this test of whether Ipswich now can start shutting the door on faces, I'm sure will be tested by Fleetwood. We just got to all get our feet back on the. I know, get our feet back on the floor and make sure that they, you know, that this isn't just a runaway win. That we start now looking ahead to. We're guilty of skipping ahead to, well, can they do it against Wickham and can they do it against, you know, let's get Fleetwood done first, and the players have got to make sure that they, and I'm sure, you know, that's their job. They take one game at the time. That's why we get all the cliches from in-house, but it's true. They've got to. This isn't a given on Saturday.
Should we talk about the selection questions, Hutchie? Because there are a few. Mainly, it's who to leave out and who to bring in, because they're on fire, particularly at the top of the pitch. I think by the look of it, the back four and the midfield, Evans and Morsey, is pretty much set, isn't it? Walton now you'd expect to continue in goal. But up front, obviously, they've got Bon, who's on Fuego. He's not going anywhere. But you've got Chaplin's got 4 in 6. Aluko's got 3 in 2. Carl Edwards came back and got subbed off early on Tuesday. You've got Selena to come back into the side. You've got Wes Burns. What would you do up top?
I think there's one variable, and that's who plays in the attacking 3 with I imagine Aluko and Chaplin. I don't know what I would do. He's got too many options. I don't think Kyle Edwards did enough to completely nail it down. I think he had some good moments where he got the ball and was able to run at his man, but never kind of did it in too dangerous an area. But at the same time, he also didn't do enough to not deserve another go at it. It wouldn't shock me if Cook went the same again with this one. But I'd want to get Wes Burns back in this team. I think I'd want to get him back in the team, and I'd be tempted to maybe even see if Aluko fancied to go on the left side, because I think he could play there as well. I honestly don't know what he'll do, and I don't think he probably expected to have this many options for what is now feeling like one position in the team.
An embarrassment of riches, Stewie. Sonny Aluko, the man who I put 19th and bottom of Ipswich Town's summer signing business in terms of making an impact. Once again, Heath does it.
So many good hot takes on this podcast. It's unreal.
Yeah, I think I just said I can't see him when he's going to play. There we go, in my face, Sonny, and I enjoy being wrong when it's like this. But yeah, I mean, what do you make of that up top? Because it is, like, as I say, they've got so many options now up top, and it does appear to be that one position now, doesn't it? That left-sided winger, which is unbelievable. Because earlier in the season we were going, Kyle Edwards, core, what a player! He's nailed on.
I think the two wide spots are still sort of not nailed down yet, but now Chaplin, I think, is starting to become embedded as that 10. You know, not even mentioned Fraser then potentially coming back into the mix there. You're talking about Edwards, Selina, Fraser, Aluko, Burns, 5 players for 2 positions there. I think Burns going up against his former clubs, that has to be a little bit of a factor. I think his pace at home excites fans. I think he came on and had a real impact off the bench. I don't know if you've seen that touch with Toto's raking pass out to the right and takes it sort of on the run on the outside of his boot. But how can you drop Sonny Aluko after scoring 3 goals in 2 games? And I think he's more the type of wide man that Paul Cook likes, someone who plays tucked well inside. Sonny Aluko, he almost becomes part of the midfield unit and vacates space for others to get forward. So major selection headaches. We're talking about Bursant Selina coming back from international duty and not walking straight back into a team. It's where Ipswich are at the moment. So yeah, you would imagine the rest of it will be the same at the back. Even if Coulson's back, I don't know how quickly they'll sort of chuck him back into the mix. But I thought, going back to Toto coming into the team, Edmondson shuffling across to left-sided centre half feels like quite a small tweak, but I thought that made a massive difference. Because I thought he helped Penny, and I thought between Penny and Burgess it looked like a bit of a weak link as an area. When you've kind of got 2 players slightly below it, and they combines to make an area of weakness. And I think Edmondson helped Penny, and I think Toto was Toto. He had a couple of slightly dodgy moments in the first half, but in general, he's got pace to get himself out of danger. He's strong. We know that. I just thought that looked a far more solid back unit.
And can we also pause to appreciate Andy Warren? You were the first to coin the term denaissance. We very much are in another, the third and possibly greatest period of denaissance now. He's going to be up against a team that he played for last season as well this weekend. A word for Janoi. Did we ever think that Janoi Donation, as much as we all love him and have spoken on many times how he never lets Town down and a great backup defender, we never thought he'd be the nailed-on right-back starter, did we?
No, I don't think anybody did. I don't think he did either. But I also don't think he probably thought about it that much, because he is one of the most relaxed, laid-back footballers you will ever meet. He's doing exactly what is asked of him at the moment, and then some actually.
He's creating goals as well. He made 2 on. I mean, that's not a part of his game traditionally, is it?
No, it certainly isn't. But it's it's good to see. I do think that switch is exactly what Ipswich needed at that point. It was enforced really, because Kane he wasn't injured as such, but he had such a tough time that change simply had to be made at that point. But I think the kind of the solid sort of no frills approach to right back was exactly what they needed at that point, which helped them begin this kind of run of more settled run that they've had, and he's grown within that as well to kind of grow into his role. So yeah, it's really nice to see that one coming good.
The hero that Ipswich Town need. £1 million picks, Hutchie, because one thing that was concerning me on Tuesday night when Town were 2 and 3-0 up, I thought this is great, but Hutchie's going to lose money. And then of course the 4th goal goes in. I realise that's it. He's won. Town has scored 4. He's betting on at least 4 goals. So, after Stu's hatchet job on your pot, you've at least started the climb back towards £1 million in the kitty.
Well, back over the million.
Are you just
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah.
Stewie shaved off 600 grand. How have you managed?
Yeah, it's back
So
to what 1,025 grand. We're
Oh,
back
look
up
at
to now.
that.
What 500 back.
Never let Watson near your cash again. What are you doing this weekend, £1,000,000 picks?
Well, we're at £1,025,000. I don't have this game. This game worries me a little bit.
Mhm.
So I'm not doing anything particularly drastic. I'm going small stake, massive reward on this one. So I'm going to shave off the 25 grand and use that all on Ipswich to win 2-0 and Bersant Salina to be the last goal scorer
Oh,
at 77 to 1,
wow.
which would return 1.95 million.
So you're working on the basis they're going to win, and you reckon Salina's going to come off the bench and put the cap on it. That's showing you're working out.
Yeah.
Tremendous. So we've got your prediction there. Is that actually your prediction, Town to win 2-0?
Yeah. Yep.
Stewie, what are you saying?
Oh, I'm going to have to say a Town win. It would feel wrong of me to say otherwise at the moment. Maybe a little bit tougher than that. I'll go 2-1.
2-1. I'm going to say 1-0. I can't bring myself to pick against Town after that victory at Pompey. But equally, like you say, this is not going to be a straightforward game. And there is a concern that it may be a little bit overlooked going into games against sides that are further up the table. So Hutchie says 2-0. Stu says 2-1. I say 1-0. Boys, anything else to discuss? Can I just point out, Stewie, I've just realised, are you wearing a T-shirt that says Dad?
I am, yes. This is my father's.
Mark, do you know who that? Do you know who that is?
I've no idea who that is. It's some kind of cartoon dog.
Yeah, it's got Ipswich Town connotations as well.
Has it?
That's Bluey, mate.
It's Bluey.
Is it?
Yeah,
that's Bluey. It's like an Australian kids cartoon, which is I would say the best of the kids cartoons out there.
Really?
He's the dad that I aspire to be. Bluey's dad.
Why?
This was a Father's Day present. It's just a good, fun, empathetic father figure.
What are the best as parents yourselves? What's the best? Because obviously you clearly have to watch a lot of things on rotation now, I'd imagine. Is there anything that you think actually that's not too? I don't mind putting this one on. Would that be
Bluey? Would probably be top of that list.
Yeah. Bluey's all right. We're watching a lot of Miraculous on Disney at the moment, which is a classic story of a girl who is by day a Parisian school child. By night she is Ladybug, the crime fighting hero that Paris needs. That's all right. The one I can't stand, and we're past it now, thankfully, is Mr. Tumble. I can't do it. I just cannot. I just can't do it.
The geezer, Mr. Tumbles, made a mint though, hasn't he?
I know he has, but it's horrific. It's not for me. I like the principles of it. I love the principles of it. But it's just not for me.
Do you ever pull out the classics from your? I mean, like things like, for example, I remember watching when I was a kid, like Banana Man and all that sort of stuff. Is that ever on rotation anymore?
I have tried going to YouTube and sort of introducing our daughter to old classics like did we try Poddington Peas?
Yeah.
Tried her with a bit, I think, Care Bears, because that was my wife trying to introduce that. All sorts, that sort of,
We did the Raccoons. Did you watch the Raccoons?
Raccoons. The Raccoons was sick, man.
Yeah, we tried them. Yeah, we tried the Raccoons the other day. She quite liked it, so there's some hope. But the problem is the quality of it is so kind of the actual visual quality of it is so bad that they don't even recognise it as being like real TV. That's the problem with it. But the soundtrack to Raccoons was brilliant.
DuckTales as well. Do you remember DuckTales?
DuckTales is available on Disney Plus, I believe.
There's some great clips, isn't there, of athletes and teams dancing to the tune of DuckTales. which is definitely worth a look.
Mm.
Do any of you remember Pob, boys, while we're on this?
I'm
Do you
aware of
remember
Pob.
Pob.
I'm aware of Pob. Yeah.
I've no idea how that was allowed back in the day. As far as I remember it was basically a puppet that looked like something out of a nightmare, spitting onto your TV screen and then writing in it.
Oh yeah, I do remember
Do you remember
now.
that? How the
Yeah.
hell did they let us watch that back in the day? I'm sure that they would never get away with that now, surely. Puppet gossing all over screen while looking like something out of a Wes Craven horror film. Not for me.
Yeah. Was that around the time of Trapdoor as well? Do you remember that one?
Yeah, vaguely.
Hmm.
Vaguely. Yeah. Anyway, I digress,
Is
boys.
this is this good audio? I don't
Absolutely.
know.
Well,
I
I'm
think so.
assuming there's a lot of parents out there. Sorry, Hutchie.
Let's get back to football. The Hurricanes. Remember that?
Yeah.
Trying. That's. I might try her out on the Hurricanes at some point. Didn't they play in like the top of a mountain in Peru or something?
Yeah, that's it. Top stuff. Anyway, let us know what your favourite TV kids programs are. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people out there in the KOA Army who go through this exact same thing. Anyway, boys, anything else to mention other than TV
Got
programs?
one more
for kids?
note on Fleetwood.
Yep,
Mr. Joe Garner is
of course.
making his Portman Road. Has he been back? I don't think he'll have been back since he left Ipswich, will he?
Yeah, I think he came with Wigan.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he came off the bench at the weekend. Be nice to see him. Well, I'm sure we'll get the. I'm sure he'll be flopping to the floor within seconds of coming on. That will bring back some memories.
Listen to this Wigan. This is the Wigan team that he came back with in 2018. Listen to the players in this: Christian Walton, Callum Connolly, Sam Morsey, Gary Roberts, Lee Evans, Joe Garner, all played in that game for Wigan, for Paul Cook's Wigan. And look at them now.
There we go.
Tremendous. I hope you've enjoyed this week's celebratory Kings of Anglia podcast after that fantastic 4-0 win at Portsmouth. Just a reminder again to support our sponsors, manscaped.com. Use the code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery. And also follow us across all the social medias, Kings of Anglia on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Boys, I watched the new James Bond film while you were on your way to Portsmouth on Tuesday. Absolutely incredible. I don't want to say any more than that, but it's a film I think you have to see in a cinema because it's so big and loud. Yeah, it left me, honestly, I walked out of the cinema in a state of shock.
Thank you to the group of teenage girls who discussed very loudly the spoiler that everyone else has been quite consciously trying to sort of avoid on the train the other day. So yeah, thanks for that.
Don't mention it.
Cheers.
Do not.
Quite a few
spoil it for
people
anyone
in the carriage turned around and basically said, "Shut the
else.
cup." I haven't seen it yet, so yeah, I've got an idea of where it goes, but I'll still watch it. Is it better than? Did you agree with Mike Bacon's review the other day, or is it better than that?
It's certainly up there in terms of best Bond films. I'm not sure it's better than Skyfall as a standalone piece of work. It is probably a little bit too long, but the action sequences are mental. There's a nod to like John Wick in there. There's some very John Wick-esque action sequences with gun fighting, shall we say, and the ending is staggering, absolutely staggering. And as I say, we all kind of walked out of the cinema in silence, in shock. I'm actually going back to watch it again next week with the wife.
That's when the cinema's the best, I think.
Yeah.
I was the same with Dunkirk.
Yeah.
Went and watched that and came out in a bit of a kind of, for probably slightly different reasons, but just you come out and you're just kind of feeling it. Like the cinema has affected you.
That's another classic example. Dunkirk is a film that you really need to see at the cinema because the sound is so important in that. You don't get that just watching it on your TV at home. And I'd say the same for this Bond film.
Yeah. Did you see Tenet?
I haven't seen Tenet.
That was good at the cinema. I've watched it again since on not cinema screen, and it's just not the same. It's the sound, isn't it? The immersive nature of it.
100%. Anyway, that brings us to the end of today's podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. Fleetwood Town this weekend. Andy Hutchwarren, Mike the Big Porker Bacon, and Roscoe will be your team at Portman Road on Saturday. Stewie, enjoy your holiday in Scotland. Bring us back some tartan and some single malt whiskey. I'd muchly appreciate that. For the rest of you friends, have a great rest of the week. Enjoy your weekend. If you're going to the game, enjoy that. And we'll speak to you again on Monday.